What's up, Wavehealernation? Welcome back to another show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I just had the opportunity of watching the documentary Living with Chucky, all about the Child's Play Chucky franchise, written and directed by filmmaker Kyra Elise Gardner, who is the daughter of one of the producers of many of the movies. And what a treat. That's all, man, that's the best thing I can say is what a treat. For most of you out there, you were probably a lot like me. As I was a kid growing up in the 90s, I was definitely afraid of Chucky, the doll. I was afraid of the movies. I was afraid of anything to do with that killer doll, Chucky. And I remember because my cousins were so into horror movies, I would see the Chucky doll at Spencer's and like start freaking out and would not want to go anywhere near it. And it was just something that tormented me and haunted me my whole entire childhood. And it all kind of came full circle because I moved out to California when I was 25, back in 2015. And I became a scare actor at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, as most of you guys know. And I got really involved in the haunt and horror scene out here in Southern California. And I got really involved with Midsummer Scream, as most of you guys know. And I got to actually meet one of the directors of the original movie, Tom Holland, or Thomas Holland. Not Tom Holland Spider-Man, but Tom Holland, the horror director. Directed many, had his hands in many different horror projects and horror movies. So it all came full circle, and I was so excited when I first found out about this documentary, that they were going to be doing it a while back. And it's really cool because the best thing I can say about it is if you are a haunt or horror Halloween fan, or if you're a fan of the Chucky franchise, you definitely want to check this one out. I think that there's something in there for everybody, even people who don't like Chucky or don't have anything to do with the franchise. There is a lot of family and emotional connection and community in this film. And I think that's the beautiful thing about telling the story of this franchise is at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. A group of people who created a community who were excited about Halloween stuff and created a project. And it turned into a whole entire franchise. And one, kind of like Midsummer Scream, one big dysfunctional family of fans who just love Chucky and love everything involved with it. So I'll give you some tidbits, and I don't want to tell you too much because I don't want to ruin it for you. But one of the coolest things that I discovered that I didn't know is that Chucky, in the first movie, as most of you know if you've seen the movie, he is possessed by a serial killer spirit. That kind of is what gives him his power to kill. That's what makes him evil. And the killer in that movie, his name is Charles Lee Ray. And that was derived and inspired by 3 famous serial killers, including Charles Manson and a couple others. And I felt like I've heard about that before, but it was just good to bring that back to my attention, obviously, in the documentary. So that's how they came up with the serial killer's name that possessed the Chucky doll, Charles Lee Ray. There were a lot of great quotes from this movie and or from this documentary, and a few. Sorry, guys, that was my dresser drawer shutting. But anyway, there were a lot of few things. So I'm just gonna kind of pull them out of here. The actor that plays the voice of Chucky, Brad Dourif. I might be messing up his name. I'm sorry about that. But Brad had a few good quotes. And one that really spoke to me and spoke to the scare actor side of me is that he said acting is intention. And with a character like Chucky, he had an intention to kill. And what he spoke to was we all have a dark side. And I've talked about this. And that's just a part of humanity. We all have a side that we need to exercise and release. Because if we don't, that's when it starts to come out in ways that we don't want it to come out. So for him, he found that creative outlet of acting. And whenever he played Chucky, he said that he had the intention to kill people. That's how he played it. That's how he brought life to the character. He didn't kill anybody, obviously. He was just acting. But that's his intention. His intention was, I'm going to kill you. When he got into the character of Chucky. And what he spoke to, another quote that he said is, you're using that part of yourself that you necessarily don't want people to see or want people to know. So he was really a creative genius in the fact that he found out what he loves to do. He found out what he was good at. He became friends with that dark side, and he turned it into something positive and creative. So that it's not hurting anyone, but it's a gift to the world, which I thought was very beautiful. And that was just so cool to me. Again, just, you're not actually killing anyone, but you intend to. That's how you bring that character to life. A big thing they talked about in the film was CGI versus practical effects. And with Chucky, you just have to have practical effects. There's no way you could do CGI with Chucky, because I feel like the fans and the community just wouldn't accept it. Because at the end of the day, like they said in the documentary, Chucky is just a animated movie in a puppet sense. So that's basically what it is. Think about it that way. Anytime you watch a Chucky movie, you're basically just watching an animation, but just with a puppet. That just made sense to me. Going back to the idea of CGI versus practical effects, a good example was in Star Wars. People can tell the difference between the puppet Yoda and the CGI version of Yoda. And I think most people would agree they prefer the practical puppet Yoda. It's just something about it. And that's very similar to Chucky. People want to see, the little doll that has a walk that is believable enough to think that you can think that this thing just came to life. And it's amazing. I mean, you see in the documentary that at times you have like almost 10 people controlling this doll, essentially, this puppet. And it's amazing how they bring it to life. You basically have each person on one body part and several people on the facial expressions. And so you have this like community and this team of people that's controlling this one thing, really bringing it to life. And it's cool how they put their personality into that too. I love the fact that this whole documentary, this whole film is made from the perspective of Kyra. And again, she's one of the daughters of the producers. I believe she's the daughter of Tony Gardner, who was in a couple of the movies, gets his head chopped off. So it's interesting the dynamics of her and Fiona. Fiona is the daughter of Brad, who plays in several of the movies. They both saw their parents getting killed on screen. So they share that trauma bond with each other, which I think is really cool. That's part of the dysfunctional family. But outside of that, I really love that it is made from Kyra's perspective of how talk about the perspective of all these people playing in the film. Jennifer Tilly, Brad Dourif, Fiona, and they have a very particular perspective of how Chucky changed their lives and how Chucky has affected them and feels like a part of their family in real life, because it all had an impact on them. But for Kyra specifically, it was a very interesting story that she told through this documentary, and I think because of her perspective, it created a sense of community. And she really did a great job of highlighting storytelling. Her dad said it best. He said that when you work on a film or you work on a project, And it might not have been him, but it was somebody in the documentary. They said it when you work on a film, it feels like you're going to camp, because you go to a place where you love the people that you're working with every day, and you work long, hard hours. So you're having a lot of fun, but you're away from your family for months at a time. And so it feels like a camp. And that made me think of when I was younger, I used to go to Future Farmers of America camp, FFA camp. And it was essentially just a recreational camp. I would go there for a week with my friends through that organization, and we would just play sports all day long and connect and stay up late and hang out. And it was the most fun I ever had. Granted, I wasn't away from my family for months, but that analogy just stuck in my mind when he said that. There are some guest celebrities in throughout the movie, and I won't ruin all of them for you, but one of them is Marlon Wayans, who we just recently saw in stand-up, who was hilarious. Probably the best I've ever seen. And he said it best. He said, when you make a film, you're going to war. You are literally killing yourself. And it's tough. But that reminded me of, why do we do this thing that we love so much? Because you're creating a masterpiece with a group of people that you care about. And it's hard because you're away from the ones that you love, your wife, kids, husband, your parents, your friends. And you go to this community of selected friends that you work on this project with. And you're literally working 15, 16 hours at a time, get a couple hours of sleep, wake up and do it all over again. It's like, why do we do that to ourselves? Because we love it so much. So I thought about that. And, essentially what you're doing is you're creating chemistry with others. And you're becoming a family, and you're creating these relationships. And that made me realize, that's what acting is all about. Acting is about creating chemistry with others. It's about creating relationships, business relationships, personal relationships. You got to create chemistry with these people because you're literally acting with them on film. You're working with them every day. You're trying to catch the scene, and you get to know these producers and these executives, and they feel like your family. So you're essentially becoming a family. And another one of the actors in the movie basically said, it's seldom that you walk away with real friends from different projects, but when you do, those are the things that help create a franchise like Chucky, because you keep coming back and you keep making more of the story. You can make more films, you make a TV series, maybe you do a comic book series from it, and you continue to work with these people for years until 20, 30 years later, you have a documentary like this, capturing all of these moments and reliving every piece of it. So the kind of the common ground that I saw and what I took away is that people come in and out of your life, and you get to choose who you want to surround yourself with. And why is it something as crazy as Chucky, a little psychopath murderer doll? What is it about that brings so many people together? And at the end of the day, it's that emotional connection. It's the idea that somebody had an idea, they created a piece of work and put that out there for the world, and we get to enjoy that. And we get to celebrate, not necessarily that in itself, but we get to celebrate storytelling. And we get to celebrate things that remind us of our family. Things that we did with our family, like watch Chucky when we were little, or be deathly afraid of it when we were little, and then grow up to go on to meet the people that created it or study the people that created it. And then we feel like we know them because for so many years we were terrified by something that they created. And then maybe one day we get to shake their hand and say, thank you for help shaping my childhood. And I think that's the essence in what I captured from this documentary, is that It's about those relationships and it's about those connections. So full story, full circle. As a kid, like I said, I was definitely afraid of Chucky. Came out here, got involved with different Halloween and horror conventions. I met one of the directors, Tom Holland, who helped write and create and bring the Chucky story to life. Shook his hand. He told me I was doing a great job at announcing at Midsummer Screen. Full circle moment for me. That was crazy. And then to get an opportunity to watch and review this documentary. If any of you are out there listening, Fiona, Brad, Jennifer, Kyra, Tony, Don, Tom, anybody who is involved and has their hands in this project, I invite you to come onto the show. I would love to sit down and talk to you about all of this. Huge congrats to Kyra. Thank you so much for creating this piece of work, putting it out there. Again, if you're any kind of a Halloween horror fan, or you just like scary stuff, or if you love the franchise of Chucky, or you were emotionally impacted like I was as a child, I highly recommend that you watch this documentary. So this documentary comes out on Tuesday, April 4th. It comes to streaming. It'll be on Screenbox. It'll also be available on Amazon, Apple, Prime TV, and YouTube TV, Comcast, and a bunch of other streaming platforms. So make sure you go check it out. And I'm just excited to be a part of this in even just the smallest way, to get here to watch this and review it. So thank you to everyone involved, and Wavehealernation, go check it out. Living with Chucky, the documentary, coming to streaming very soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.